Welcome back to another episode on the J.A.T side. I'm your host, Jalen Austin Taylor, and today is February 12th, 2025. And I am back today for episode number 2 of A Long Road Seeking Unity Without Complete Uniformity. And last week, I was blessed to be able to be joined by Dr. Anthony Outler on episode number 1 of this series that we began last week. And it was just a great conversation with me and him, primarily focusing on the unity part of um, seeking unity without complete uniformity. But this week, we will be uh, kind of a little bit trans kind of transferring the focus over to the uniformity side of the slogan seeking unity without complete uniformity. And Dr. Outler, he really did mention some great things on last week when I interviewed him. So if you haven't got time already, I actually would recommend going back and listening to that episode before you listen to today's episode. So go do that if you haven't already. And then if you have time tonight to come and listen to this episode or whenever you're listening to this, and come back and listen to this one either after at another time. But I do recommend going and listen to the first episode first. But you can do what you want. Just my recommendation. Um, but I'm gonna get right into it today. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. So yeah, today, as you can tell by the title, today's topic is going to be why are we so judgmental? And very this is a topic that is it's complex because um I think it's something that we all deal with, and we all have at some point, whether we admit it or not, we all at some point have one judged someone, or we felt like we've been judged by someone, and that's really going to be the focal point of today's episode. And as y'all can see, obviously, I don't have anybody with me today. I'm just by myself, but I am going to be having one more guest on. Just a little bit of foreshadowing here. I'm gonna have one more guest on in the final 2 episodes of this series next Wednesday, and the following Wednesday if we end up only doing 4 episodes. But we will have at least one more guest, so stay on the lookout for that. But back to today's episode. But why are we so judgmental? I have 3 subtopics that I mainly want to focus on and guide this kind of episode around. I am going to be still speaking from the heart, so I may go off track a little bit here and there, but I'm going to try to, guide myself with these 3 subtopics. Number 1, being judgmental is natural. Number 2, what the word says or what the Bible says. And the third subtopic is how are we to get out of the habit of judging? So I'm going to start off with that first one that I read, which is being judgmental is natural. And being judgmental really is a natural default state that us as humans, we tend to go in because of something that we may observe or something that we may think. And it's just kind of like I would put it as like a reflex or an instinct, because if you met somebody that you've never seen before on the street, and they have let's say they have ripped clothes, they have stained clothes, or they have like different types of you know things on their clothing, and it's dirty, you may like consciously or subconsciously you may decide to judge that person just because of their appearance. And that's something that I think we've all fell victim to, and we've all been not fell victim to, but we've all been guilty of doing, um, because the eyes automatically take in everything that we see. So when we see things, it's easy for us to just think things in an instant without even thinking about it. However, um, it's not always good to just automatically make assumptions about somebody. We've all heard the phrase, it's, kind of cliche, but don't judge a book by its cover. And as corny as it may sound, it really is true, because if you judge somebody just based on their outward appearance, then you may never get to know the beauty of their soul, of their inner soul, and who they really are as a person. And um, going back to the fact that being judgmental actually has been proven to be natural, studies show that being judgmental is natural, especially when initially meeting someone. So, you know, the example that I just gave, you see somebody and then you judge them based off the way they look or the way their clothes look, and it's kind of just like a thing where you, in your mind, you automatically conjure up a whole, background, or a whole different, perspective, or your own perspective of this person before you even say a word to them, or even if you say a word to them, because sometimes we may see somebody, and because of the way they look, we don't even want to talk to them. We don't even want to introduce ourselves to them, and that's something that is a very big um, roadblock in terms of this whole process of being unified without being the exact same, and without having, that all complete uniformity. And it's okay to accept someone that doesn't look like you. It's okay to accept somebody who doesn't think the same way as you. And those different beliefs and different, upbringings and appearances and stuff can actually help you become a better person. Because when you see what somebody else has been through, or when you experience somebody else's shoes, or you kind of put yourself in their shoes and kind of try to have empathy for other people, or you have a little bit more understanding for what that person, or what that current person's stage is in their life, then it kind of gives you a different outlook, and it kind of gives you a different um, viewpoint, and you can now, live and treat that person as if they were yourself, because now you realize, and now you have a different level of understanding, and a different level of compassion for that individual, or those individuals. Um, so it's really a great thing, in my opinion, when you have people who are actually different than you around you. It just gives you I feel like it gives you freshness. It gives you like a kind of unique, um, it gives you like a little bit of flavor in your life, like just like food. Like, you don't want to eat food that is unseasoned, bland, doesn't have any salt or anything like that. Like, you want to have flavored food, right? So just like you would want to have food that's flavored, food that has taste, you want to have relationships in your life that provide flavor and taste. You don't want to just have boring relationships. You don't want to just have relationships with people who think the same way as you, who dress the same way as you, who act the same way as you. Because at the end of the day, how is always being around people who only think like you, how is that benefiting you as a person? How is that helping you grow as a person? It's not. If you're always around somebody who says the same stuff as you, or who believes the same things as you, are you gonna ever think about another different, or another side of that same thought? Are you gonna ever think about or consider another option or another alternative to the way that you think? No, you're not, because you're gonna be affirmed by the same thoughts, because that's already the same thing that you think. But when you surround yourself with people who have different beliefs, or who have different upbringings, or have different life experiences, you allow yourself to experience through somebody else's experience, and really grow yourself through that person. And then people also, on the other hand, can grow through you, because if you're different from them, they're different from you. And then somehow it goes back to, we're all really the same, because guess what? We're all humans, and we all came from the same source. We all came from the same creator. So as much different as we are, or as different as we really are the same. And that's the beauty of humanity. We're so unique, so different, but at the same time, we're also so similar. We're also, so like it's it's just like amazing. I can't even describe, because I'm not the person who created us. So only the creator could really describe uh how amazing humanity really is, or how amazing it was designed to be. But that was really the I feel like I shared, a lot of the stuff that I wanted to share in that being judgmental is natural um aspect of it. So moving on to the next subtopic, what the word says or what the Bible says. So Matthew 7 verses 1 and 2. Now, before I say these verses, I just want to give a little bit of background and context. Matthew 7, 1, 2 is actually a part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. If you're not a Christian, or if you don't, or if you are a Christian, excuse me, and you know, or if you don't know, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is from Matthew chapter 5 to Matthew chapter 7, and basically those three chapters are basically a summary of Jesus's Sermon on the Mount that he preached over about 3 or 4 days, and it was recorded by Matthew in the book of Matthew, of course, um, who was there at the Sermon on the Mount. And he basically wrote down everything that Jesus said, and he put it and it was written in the Bible. So Matthew 7:1-2 says, "Do not judge others, and you will not be judged." That's verse 1. Verse 2 says, "For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged." And Jesus, again, he gave this Sermon on the Mount to this large group of people who were there to listen and to hear from Jesus. And Jesus, he only was in ministry for 3 years of his life before he ended up getting crucified on the cross. And Jesus, he gave this sermon, as I mentioned, over about 3 or 4 days. So this was like the end. This was kind of towards the end. Matthew 7 was like the end of the sermon, or the last maybe day of the sermon. This is when Jesus was giving this message particularly. And just breaking down verse 1, it says, "Do not judge others and you will not be judged." This part is pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's saying don't judge others and you won't be judged. It's as simple as that. But verse 2 is a little bit more complex because it's kind of telling you, like, it's kind of telling you, and now some people believe in karma, some people don't, but it's kind of saying that you're going to receive the same treatment that you give others, the golden rule. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. So, right here, Jesus is saying, if you say that or if you judge somebody because of the way their hair looks, then it's saying that you will be judged by the way your hair looks. I'm just using that as an example, and it obviously can be way deeper and way more um, serious and significant than just talking about somebody's hair. But it could be something as such as judging someone's sin, and you judge somebody for their sin, you're going to be judged for your sin. And I take away personally from this, like, we as humans who were brought here by God, we really don't have the right to judge anybody, especially when it comes to uh one's sins or one's actions, because we have all done and committed sins that we should not have done, and then that we should have been judged for. So we have no right to judge others because of what they've done or what they've sinned, or how they have sinned. So it's it's really something that we have to be mindful of, because especially if you're a Christian, it's like, you know that you sin, you're not perfect. We're all not perfect. We all have made mistakes. But it's really being mindful of that and saying, you know what? I'm not gonna judge this person because I know I've done things that I shouldn't have done, or I know I've been in situations that I'm not proud of, or I know I've been in situations that are have been tough for me because of stuff that I've done myself. So it's a concept that we all have to work on ourselves individually and ask ourselves, are we being the best people that we can be? Are we truly being those examples of Christ? Or are we being the models of what we believe. Especially, I'm speaking specifically to Christian believers in this moment, but are we really demonstrating what we read in the scriptures? And are we being a good example of what God wanted us to be? He designed us to come to this earth. And the third subtopic that I have, final subtopic for today, is how are we to get out of the habit of judging? And the first thing I have right now that I kind of just mentioned a little bit is being mindful. Mindfulness and awareness is 100% crucial in order to really solving any issue of the mind or anything in the mind that you don't want to do or anything that you don't want to, let's say. It starts in the mind, being mindful of it, or anything that you don't want to think, being mindful of it, and then making the adjustment when you realize yourself doing the thing that you um don't want to do. Like, for example, if I don't want to judge somebody and a judgmental thought comes up, then I am to remind myself of the scriptures, Matthew 7:1-2. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the same standard that you will be judged. So I got to remember that. I got to say, okay, you know what? Whatever the scenario is, but I'm not going to judge this person because I know that if I'm going to judge them, then I'm going to be judged, for what I've done, for what um I've sinned and the things that I've committed against God. And it's easy to get in that mindset of like, oh yeah, this person is X, Y, and Z, and not even think about it. But we have to hold ourselves to a higher level of thinking, um, in order to fulfill uh what we want. And I feel like it's a goal that we have to have if we want to be unified. We can't judge other people for the way that they look. We can't judge other people for what state of life they're in. We just have to accept them for who they are and accept them and as they are. That's what Christianity is about at the end of the day. If you're a Christian, you say you're a Christian. Christianity was built on accepting other people who are not as yourself and other people who are broken, other people who have sinned, other people who, just like you, are not perfect. And Jesus, he died on the cross for our sins so that no matter what sin we committed, we would have the opportunity to not perish but have everlasting life. And it's powerful when you think about it because God really sacrificed his only son just so that we could have the opportunity to be forgiven for the sins that he already knew we were going to commit. And God knew that we were going to have sin when he put us into this world, but he sent his only son so that we may be forgiven for those sins. And another thing that I want to share is that if a judgmental thought arises, counter it with a positive thought or something you liked about who or what you were thinking about. So, I mean, I'll give an example. The other day, and I was just thinking about it while I was kind of brainstorming this episode up, and I was over my uh on an uncle's house this past weekend, and on Saturday specifically, we were watching some college basketball, and I want to say we were watching Duke versus Clemson, and it was this one player who had like, or no, actually no, it wasn't Duke, but we were watching one basketball game, and it was this one player who had a receding hairline, and I was there with my cousin, with my uncle, and I like made a comment about uh this dude's hairline, and I was like, I think I said something like, "Oh, it's time for him to cut it all off or go bald or something." Now, this is just a petty example, but I was being judgmental in that moment because I was judging him based off of his appearance, and I was judging him based off of the way that his hairline looked. But really, I should have been keeping that thought to myself, and instead, I should have been thinking of something that would have been positive in that moment, or just, simply just, dismissing the thought completely and just talking about something else. But that's just one example. And instead of saying he had a receding hairline, I could have said that uh, I could have liked that, I liked the way his shoes looked, or liked the color of his team's jerseys, or something like that. But um, that was just a quick example of like how quick we, look to judge somebody just because of the way that they look. And that's the first thing that I go to, because it's like, and you look when you see somebody, or when you uh meet somebody, the first thing you see is their outward appearance. You're not gonna see, the inside of their heart, or how good of a person, or what type of person that person may be. You're just gonna see them for what they look like on the outside. But when you get to know somebody, when you talk to somebody, that's when you kind of start to experience kind of that person's nature and what that person really is about. But you can't really see that by just looking at somebody. So that's why it's so important to make sure that we we are very mindful about judging other people, and especially when we uh first meet them, judging them off of appearance, but we really shouldn't be judging them at all. Um, and to close out this episode, I'm gonna say, kind of mentioned a couple of times for this episode, but we are all human. We all make mistakes. We all have insecurities, and God is the only one who has the authority to judge us at the end of the day. So our job is to uplift our fellow brothers and sisters, and to give them encouragement, and give them confidence, and not tear them down by judging them, or not tearing them down because we want to say negative things about them. But I don't want to go on and on here today, not necessarily about the quantity, but about the quality here on the J.A.T side. So that's all I have for you guys today. I will be back next Wednesday with episode number 3 of A Long Road, Seeking Unity Without Complete Uniformity. Next Wednesday, February 19th, back here on the J.A.T side. Stay tuned, stay tapped in. I appreciate you guys. And I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed either rest of your night or rest of your day, depending on when you're listening to this. And I'm out.